Welcome to Fans Fight Back on the Pitch Boxing app with myself, Martin Theobald, and joined once again by boxing photographer extraordinaire, Lewis Moore. How you doing, Lewis?
I'm doing good, Martin. How about yourself?
I'm all right. I'm boxing's in a fascinating place at the moment in that we've got loads of stuff coming up, nothing that's really going on right now, and yet there's still so much to talk about. I always think with boxing, like 90% of it's what happens outside of the ring rather than what's happening in the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. I find myself paying attention to more behind the scenes, negotiations than I do watching actual fights nowadays. I think we had such a good start of the year, the first 5 or 6 months of this year. We had like 2 or 3 undisputed fights. We had Canelo Bivol, Jamel Charlo versus Castano rematch. We had such a good... Yeah, absolutely. It was such a good start of the year. But then I think there was a bit of a lull around summer. And then I think we're sort of just about to kick it into gear with the sort of September, October. We've got the Joyce Parkers and the Benn Eubanks. And then, we might have a Joshua Fury or something like that. We might have a Spence Crawford, fingers crossed. But, it's all going to heat up over the next couple months or so.
Yeah, Parker, Joyce, Lara, Wood.
Yeah. Unfortunately on the same night, but, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's boxing, isn't it, really?
Very true, very true.
But yeah, one of the ones you mentioned there, let's jump straight into it though. Benn versus Eubank. So we're recording this Monday evening, a couple of hours after it's turned out Eubank Senior is looking to pull the plug on the fight happening at all because he doesn't want his son going down to 157 pounds. We'll start with that. Do you think it's legit? Do you think he would... Has he got the right to pull it? Start from there, and then we'll work out whether he can or he can't.
It almost feeds into a little bit of what Conor Benn was saying in the lead up and in the face-off that was released, I think, yesterday, about how Eubank Jr. has always sort of been holding the hand of his dad, who's been guiding his career, and he's not been able to carve out his own career and his own standout personality or that sort of thing. And when I first saw the headlines, I think it was the Mail, saying that, he doesn't want to happen to Chris what happened to his other son who tragically passed away. I think it was a heart attack last year. Because I don't think he wants to lose another son. That's what he was saying. And I thought that's quite heavy stuff. You wouldn't say that unless you meant it. Then I looked into the article a little bit more, and it turns out, I don't know if it was a media call, but Nigel Benn and Conor Benn were in the same call. So I feel like it was some kind of promotion for the actual fight. And it's like, if you genuinely believe that you need to pull your son out because of health-related reasons, because of the rehydration clause and the weight cut, don't mention it in a promotional call or in a media call. Like, maybe there's another place where you can do it. Because if it was just a single interview between him and the interviewer, then I could believe it. But again, because it's part of the promotion of the fight, I feel like he might just be trying to leverage a little bit, maybe trying to get the rehydration clause to go up a little bit, because that's, everyone knows that it's 157. Like, they even mentioned it in the face-off yesterday. So I think he might be trying to leverage something a little bit more behind the scenes, such as the rehydration clause, which I think, to be honest, is probably where the true danger lies in terms of losing weight.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there, isn't there, really? I don't think Eubank Senior would use his son's name in vain. To use Sebastian's name, who passed away, as you say, last year out in Dubai from a heart attack, I believe, or certainly heart condition. It doesn't seem like you would use that lightly. And as a parent myself, look, I get it. Like, if he's just seen one of his children pass away, and then there's one of his other children is putting themselves at an inherent risk of, he's having to cut 3 pounds more than what he would usually be doing. That's 2%, isn't it? Essentially, it's 2% on top of what you've got to assume. Eubank Jr. started as a middleweight. He's now 32 years old, and he's still a middleweight. Granted, he went up for a little while, and then he's come back down. Fighters don't continue to lose weight easily. As they get older, they go up in weight. So making 160 must be difficult for Eubank already. And so to lose that additional 2%, you're talking very fine margins there. And when you start translating that through into how it affects, say, the fluid that surrounds the brain, and if you're taking away 2% of that, I can see entirely where Eubank Senior, who's been through it in his career, who's seen, Michael Watson get damaged firsthand, literally firsthand.
Yeah.
I can start to see why he would go, no, you're not doing it.
Yeah, because I remember seeing an interview with him from back around then when he was active. And I think he was quite open about it. He called boxing a mugs game. He says it's far too dangerous for the amount of reward you get. So this is kind of in line with that. It's quite in character for him. But at the same time, I always remember Hearn and Warren, who agree on very little, but something they've always both said is that Chris Eubank Sr. is tremendously hard to work with. And he'll make a fight almost fall through for the littlest detail and that sort of thing. So it's kind of, it was a shock when you see it and you see the Michael Benson post saying, oh, he's pulled him out of the fight. And like you say, does he actually have authority to? Because he said, I've pulled him out, but you're not part of Wasserman. You used to be part of his corner and all that sort of thing. And it's also funny because it wasn't like a week or two ago that Junior said, my dad will be in the corner for me. And it's just, like I said, again, to use his dead son's name in vain, I would never say that, oh, he's just using that for the sake of the promotion. But at the same time, it just does seem a little bit too, to be fair, he is Chris Eubank Sr., so he's always going to have a bit of pizzazz around him. But that whole shenanigans that's unfolded tonight has been a little bit too much pizzazz to be taken completely literally, in my opinion. But then I think that media call that they were on will probably be released by the time this goes out. So I'm sure people will have their own opinions.
Yeah, and I think it was it was a Zoom call, wasn't it? Where Conor and Nigel were also on it as well.
The
other thing that I find that maybe adds some legitimacy to it is, as you say, Eubank Jr. has been saying all along, Roy Jones isn't going to be in my corner. I need my dad for this. I need my dad to be there. And in that face-off, which was recorded a couple of weeks back at the press conference, wasn't it? So it wasn't like live. But he was saying at the time, I've not managed to speak to my dad. So like, I've made this plan, but I've not run it by my dad. And Eubank Sr. is not a man who's afraid of the cameras. He's not a man who's going to shy away from things. Yet we haven't heard from him once about this fight. Not once. The first that we hear from him is him saying, I'm pulling him out.
It's strange.
I'm sure there've been plenty of other opportunities where he could have inserted himself into the storyline and probably would have quite happily done so. I'm almost erring on the side of it's legitimate by Eubank Senior. Quite how that then plays out, there were contracts signed. It's not like you picked up an injury. It's that your old man saying no.
Like you alluded to, it's not like he's official representation of his son. I don't know if he has any, he said that he might go down legal routes, but I'm not really sure how someone that on paper is not that involved in this fight is going to be able to stop what is probably going to be one of, if not the biggest UK fights of the year. So, but yeah, like I said, by the time this comes out, I'm sure, all will be revealed, so to speak.
Yeah, and as much as he might threaten going down legal routes, I'm pretty sure Wasserman and Hearn would also threaten to go down legal.
Exactly, that's very true, very true.
It all becomes very messy and very expensive very quickly. Did you watch the face-off, the two of them?
I did, yes, I did. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Ade Oladipo. I've met him a few times. He's such a lovely guy. And yeah, I was really happy with how it went down. I don't think it was like sort of to be fair, not every face-off is going to be a White Chisora or a Foch Groves or that sort of thing, but it was a very quality face-off. I think it's like, I remember when we were speaking about it the last time I was on here, it's like they don't have a rivalry with each other. It's a rivalry of the second names, but I think that's bleeding into each of their individual personalities, because you've got the sort of mastermind, he really knows how to talk, Chris Eubank Jr. He really knows how to wind you up, saying, oh, it's going to take an act of God for you to beat me, Conor. This fight is going to be on a walk down the park on a breezy sunny day and stuff like that. And he really knows how to get underneath someone's skin, but also keep cool himself. And then Conor Benn's, he's got the typical, what are you going on about, mate? Stop having a laugh, that sort of thing. And I think it's a really good contrast of personalities. And I think we're just seeing how good it's going to get on fight week and going forward.
Yeah, I agree completely. I actually thought Conor Benn handled himself very well, because I had him down as slightly more fiery than what he showed during that. And I think maybe he had to possibly rein himself in, because let's face, like, Eubank Jr. would antagonize anyone. Like, I would be very impressed by anyone that could keep their calm and composure while he's sat very smugly, like winding you up, having a little dig here and there. Going on about how he's not going to have sex for 2 weeks before the unbelievable.
Like I said, it's such a good contrast because you've got Conor on the other side saying, I don't care about your sex drive, mate. You know what I mean? It's such a good mold. And like I said, it's like we're just seeing it grow. And I think by the time the promotion fully goes forward by fight week, it's going to be fantastic. I
think if it goes ahead, let's assume it does for now. Okay. If it goes ahead, if it's a close fight in any way, then at the moment it feels like Eubank Jr. doesn't care about Conor Benn, and it's just a nice payday to get the fight done to move on.
Yeah.
If it turns out not to be that, and actually it is a difficult fight for him, and Conor Benn puts up a decent effort, the rematch would be tremendous. To see Eubank in a slightly different vein, if he, had to eat his words slightly of how much he respects Conor, then I think that build up to any rematch would be tremendous as well.
Absolutely, because I think it would be perfect timing as well to put it in a stadium. I think they mentioned it a little bit in the face-off, is that this is a stadium-worthy fight. I managed to get a couple of tickets, but there were tens of thousands of people that weren't able to. And I think if it was a different type of year, I don't know if they would have risked going in a stadium the first time round, but the fact that this is October sets it up perfectly for Wembley. Might be a stretch, but I still think it could do tens of thousands outdoors in the spring.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a Wembley fight, if it's close enough that it draws enough interest for a rematch. And what do you think about the weight issue itself? Do you think it's safe to allow it at 157? And let's assume it's a 10-pound rehydration clause for the next day.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is that I don't think 157 is that. And again, as someone who's never fully stepped in a professional or amateur ring, so, take what I say with a big grain of salt, but I don't think 157 is nearly as much of an issue as a rehydration clause. Because I think if you drain him the day before, and if you make him drain those 3 pounds, and again, like you said, at that age 32, like he says himself, he's reaching a weight that he hasn't been at since I think he was 18. So it's definitely not ideal. But I feel like if you were to let him rehydrate to whatever he wants, then I don't think it would be much of an issue. But I think in terms of health, I think a rehydration clause, that is, because then you're properly limiting what they're going to be like on the night. And because I remember I think it was Khan versus Brook, there was the same day weigh-in. And I remember hearing that most same-day weigh-ins are like 8 or 9 a.m. You wake up, you don't have enough time to get breakfast, which changes your weight, obviously. And then you immediately go into that same-day weigh-in. But I remember for Khan Brook, I think it was like 1 or 2 p.m. or something like that. And that is genuinely properly dangerous. Luckily, nothing happened on the night. But if something similar to that is happening for this fight, where he's got to come in at 2 p.m. on fight day, let's say it's 10 pounds, like you say, then that's 167 pounds. I think that's quite ridiculous, because he says that he walks around not too far off, somewhere between 160 and 170, because he's one of those guys. He's a gym rat. He's shredded all year round. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like if you're controlling what he is on the night that much, I think Spencer Oliver said that he told him it was 5 pounds, but I think that was probably a tongue-in-cheek Chris Eubank comment. You know what I mean? But I think it will be around that 10-pound mark, maybe 8 at the minimum. And I feel like that could make it quite dangerous.
I would suggest if he were walking around 160 to 170, then he would be a light middleweight, not a middleweight. I think that's a mind games thing I would suggest from Eubank. But
yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
A lot of the focus is on the performance, not on the health. And I think that's almost quite dangerous to overlook. Eubank himself said kind of, I'll be 60% on the night because of that weight cut. Whether you believe him or not, but if you're saying that you'll be lacking in 40%, that's dangerous. That's very dangerous in lots of weights.
When you're taking punches at 60% of you, again, it's just him being him. He might be like you say, you take off that £3, it might be 90%, or it's hard to put down to a percentage what your performance is going to be.
Yeah.
Conor Benn might be good on the night, he might be terrible on the night. His power might translate up, it might not. But at the end of the day, he will be limiting himself. And when your head is taking that kind of punishment, when you've limited yourself like that, it could get very messy.
Yeah. I'm not comfortable with it. I can't wait for the fight. I love the fight. I love the madness of it. But there's an alarm bell in the back of my head that says...
Yeah. And I do have an ulterior motive saying that Chris Eubank Senior is talking rubbish and that the weight isn't an issue, because like I said, I've got tickets. And I had tickets for Savannah Marshall Claressa Shields versus Savannah Marshall, should I say. And I can't take one more cancellation or postponement. So I'm holding out hope that this happens on the 8th as planned.
Well, that was a very good segue into boxing being cancelled this last weekend. So starting with, the obviously terribly sad news about the Queen dying and, the country kind of going into... I don't know if it's official, unofficial mourning, whatever it is. You had tickets for Shields versus Marshall. What did you reckon? Should it have been cancelled? And when I say that, I don't just mean that. I mean boxing as a whole. The whole.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that's a great point, because I think, Claressa Shields, Savannah Marshall, most of the fighters on that card, they'll be fine. They'll be, properly reimbursed. They're looking at doing the 15th of October, a week after Eubank Benn, back at the O2. They'll be fine. The problem for me is it's the small hall shows. I think there was a Nielsen show on the Friday. I think, of course, dotted around the country, there's always shows at the weekend.
Yeah, there's Black Country Boxing, Goodwin Boxing. There was a Kinnock one in Scotland, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's those small hall shows where the fighters are, just working class guys just trying to make a living. And, we're in a cost of living crisis already. And then all of a sudden, their financial plan for the next month or so, it's just been evaporated over the course of about 24 hours. And I would understand it if all sport was taken off. We can't have all sport taken off and then boxing is just there on its own. Boxing as a sport in general doesn't abide by the rules that most sports play by. And I'm sure you, as someone who's experienced in boxing, knows exactly what I mean. But at the same time, I think there was rugby going on. I think there was cricket going on. I don't see any reason why having 20,000 people, the O2, singing God Save the Queen, or maybe now God Save the King, I don't see how that would have been in any way, disrespectful to the mourning period or anything like that. I feel like the British Boxing Board of Control, they did have a very hard decision to make, but I feel like, as usual with the British Boxing Board of Control, I think they're a little bit tone deaf, and I'm really not sure they should have done what they did do.
I'm with you. I feel like they flipped a coin and got it wrong. Yeah. I've seen the argument that what if at the O2 you get loads of boozed up fans there on the Saturday night. Yeah. They go to do the 2-minute silence, you get people booing it. Or they do a God Save the King and you get people booing it.
Yeah.
Well, that problem still exists. The first televised boxing that comes back, which I suspect will be the Channel 5 Wasserman show this weekend, that risk is still there. For whatever it is, the next Sky Sports show, I'm sure the next DAZN show and the next Sky Sports show will both have a minute silence in respect of the Queen. That risk doesn't go away. Now, maybe it's because the nerve is still quite tender at the weekend just gone. So you don't want to risk it. But it's still there as a problem when the sport comes back. So I would have thought you're more likely to get the respect and the adherence to it at the weekend just gone than you would be in the future. I think it was a mad decision. As you say, other sports went ahead. They just did it with that, giving the nod to the fact that it's happened. And football didn't, but that's going to go ahead this week. So, to me, it wasn't the right decision. As you say, I wouldn't want to be the one that had to make the decision at the British Boxing Board of Control. I heard that those who were making the decision weren't completely engaged with it through the process. I won't go any further on that, but
like I said, when you've been in the business for long enough, you know how the game is played, I guess.
yeah. So I just thought they made a meal of it. And you've got people that travelled, and I'm not talking like Americans coming over. I'm talking people that would have travelled down to the O2 that weren't from London, that would have been travelling down on the Friday. You put that decision off, and then you cancel it. You allowed the girls, did they weigh in?
Yeah, I think what they did is that it was sort of the worst of both worlds, because they told them, oh, we're going to do a behind, because I remember, I think it was Savannah Marshall's sister went out on Facebook and said, the fight's going ahead. They're just doing the weigh-in behind closed doors. And the plan for a long time, I think up until like 1 or 2 p.m. was that they're going to do a behind the scenes weigh-in at 3 p.m. And then, like I said, at 1 or 2 p.m. they announced, oh, the show's completely off. So it's like you've got all of these fighters, you know, like Michaela Mayer, you know, Alicia Baumgartner. They don't make the weight, you know, too easily by their own admission. And it's like you're just leaving these people to wake up and not eat anything until about 3 p.m. And then it comes to an hour before that weigh-in. You're like, oh, by the way, don't worry about it. You're fighting, you know, on the 15th of next month. And like you said, you know, they flipped a coin. And no one, I think they were probably thinking worst case scenario. Like you say, they don't want people booing the anthem. They don't want drunk boxing watchers to come out on TV with anything disrespectful, especially when it's, you know, one of Sky's biggest events of the year, and it's going to be on Sky Sports 1 and all that jazz. But I think, okay, cool, that might have happened. But at the end of the day, there's dozens of small ball fighters, and there's several small ball shows across the country where, like I said, their financial plans for the next month have been ruined. And I think, is that the larger picture, or is the larger picture the risk of something offensive going on? And again, I just think it wasn't, I understand why they made it, but I just think it was a wrong decision.
No, I agree. And yeah, it reminds me, they didn't weigh in, did they? Because if a fighter weighs in and the show doesn't go ahead, they're entitled to a percentage of their purse.
Yeah.
If they don't weigh in, they're entitled to nothing. Not saying that's got anything to do with it at all. I'm putting that way in, but there you go. This weekend, so we've got the Wasserman show up in Bolton, isn't it? I
think so, yeah.
It's poor, it's dreadful. You got Nathan Gorman fighting someone, I can't remember.
Yeah. I mean, he's coming off, I don't know if it's injury or inactivity, but I think they're looking to do the Fabio Wardley fight for the British title. And I think that would have made a lot of sense for the Benn card, because that's a Wasserman fighter versus a Matcham fighter. That would have been a perfect co-main. But I think Wardley and Gorman have both said out and said they'll probably both have one more. I think Gorman will have one more. And then I think they might look to do it before the end of the year. Yeah,
kind of makes sense. It's a decent fight when it comes around. I can't even remember who else is on there. I've no idea.
Lyndon Arthur. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if he's fighting anyone in particular. He's coming off a KO loss last year, so you know, almost a year's of inactivity, coming off a KO loss. So fair enough. But on the Friday we've got Benn versus Morrison at York Hall. I'm going to that one as well.
Oh yeah.
Looking forward to that one very much. I think that should be a good little scrap.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that's happening, if I'm perfectly honest. I love Denzel Bentley. He fought my mate Linus, so I don't like him because he beat him. But I love Denzel Bentley as a bloke. Excellent man. Then I've seen him and Linus have been sparring recently. And
I think Linus is in the. I think he's in the Conor Benn camp.
He is. He's been telling me some stories about it. It's.
I think he was in now that I remember, I think he was in a Twitter space and he was talking about Conor Benn's power, and he was quite complimentary of Conor Benn's power, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, he said he can hold a shot, Conor. He can he can very much do it. He said he's quite easily you can get him to
he gets a bit rowdy.
Hot-headed, quite quickly. But yeah, he said actually, for a welterweight who's coming up, said he can really hit. So yeah, good on him. And then the big one over in the States this weekend, Canelo versus Triple G3, which seems to have crept up on us a little bit.
Because it was announced, I think it was like 17 days after he lost to Dimitri Bivol.
Yeah.
They announced this and they've given it the proper, it's like, I remember sort of pre-pandemic when you'd have a press conference like 2 or 3 months before a fight, and that just doesn't really exist nowadays. But with Canelo versus Golovkin, we've had this proper long build-up that I don't think we've had in quite a while.
Yeah, and have we seen them together? We've seen them together once, haven't we? I think in the build-up to it.
Yeah.
But the rest of it's been kind of sniping at one another from afar. Love it.
Yeah, because Golovkin's been strangely clever with this because he's saying a lot of things in interviews behind the scenes. He made a really funny comment that I really cracked up at. He was saying how, oh, the thing about me is I have a lot of fans in Mexico, but Canelo doesn't have any fans in Kazakhstan. And like you say, they've just been sniping at one another. But Golovkin was quite funny. It was almost Eubank Jr.-esque with the mind games, because when they did the initial press conference, and Golovkin can speak like pretty good English. He's done like videos with GQ, and he can genuinely speak quite good English, but he did the whole thing through a translator, and he said nothing remarkable at all. But then whenever he does the interviews, you know, he's, like you say, he's been sniping those shots. And I think that he's kind of getting Canelo a bit riled up here. Whether it's going to do him good in the ring, I have no clue. I think probably not. But I really, you know, I think the build-up, especially this week, I think the grand arrivals are probably tonight at like 4 a.m. or by the time this comes out, I think we'll probably be quite close to the weigh-in. But yeah, no, I think it's going to get very spicy.
Yeah. How do you see it going? Because I mean, it's gone up. They're at super middleweight this time, aren't they? So it's,
yeah.
It's
I actually think the extra pounds, I think they will actually benefit Golovkin a little bit more than they won't. Because I think if you look at what he's been susceptible to recently is the body shots. Yeah. It's like, on the one hand, he is going to have Canelo, one of the best body punches in the entire game, on him. But at the same time, you know, slimming down to that 160 frame, what he's been doing for like the past decade and a half, you know, give him that little bit of extra muscle and fat on his frame. I feel like that will help him out a little bit in that regard. Golovkin doesn't really rely on speed, definitely not as much as he used to. And I feel like that extra poundage, it's not going to, I can't imagine his feet are going to be that much slower. And I can't imagine that he's going to even cut that much weight, because I feel like he'll probably just weigh in pretty close to what he's walking around at, because like I say, he's been making 160 for God knows how long. But I do have Canelo winning the fight. I think that as much as this does have a very Pacquiao versus Marquez 4 build-up, where you have the favourite coming off a points loss, and like people are sort of questioning, do we really need to see this fight? But we know it will still be a good fight. But at the same time, was it?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, because I think it's like Golovkin is still Golovkin. I think he did look a little bit, he showed his age a little bit in the Murata fight. I think it was April. But at the same time, he showed the age of a 40-year-old that had been out the ring for 18 months. And I feel like we will probably see a close to prime Golovkin, because like I said, he's not going to be, you know, washing down his frame that much compared to how he has been recently. And I feel like this is probably, he knows that this is make or break. Like he's even said himself, and I think this is also the mind games a little bit, that this is his retirement fight. This is his, you know, this is his finest hour, or his last hour, so to speak. So I feel like we will see a very good Golovkin. But at the same time, I feel like Canelo's now got a bit between his teeth. I feel like he's going to be back at the weight where he's looked, I think he's undefeated 168, and he's looked very almost unstoppable most of the times he's been fighting there. And I feel like, you know, he's ascended in the 4 years since we saw them last in the ring. Whereas Golovkin, like I said, I think he'll look very good because he'll have that motivation. He'll also have a pretty big bit between his teeth. But I still feel like Canelo should be made the favourite.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've seen some predictions that say like, oh, Canelo's going to stop him this time. It'll be decided. I don't see how you stop him. And I know that it's, you know,
it's hard to imagine Triple G going down. Yeah. Because I think there's that story that, well, not story, but they say that he's never been down amateur or pro. I remember looking it up once. I think he was down as an amateur once, but we're talking what, mid 2000s, early 2000s. I just cannot imagine him taking a shot to the face and going down. I can imagine him taking a body shot and going down, maybe accumulation of punches sort of thing. But no, to flatline Golovkin would be an incredible statement, but I just wouldn't see it happening.
It would almost have to be Pacquiao Marquez. Like, it'd have to be that one shot bang and he's gone.
Yeah.
I don't see how else you do it. But I don't see how you do that either. And yeah, I just think everything is in Canelo's favour for it. And I'm not surprised about that. He's, you know, the biggest name in boxing potentially. But you think he's been more active. He's at a weight that he's comfortable at. Golovkin has fought twice in 2 years, is it? And looked a little bit slow.
He's now in three. I think he sat out all of 2021. I think he had one fight in December 2020. And then before that was 2019. So yeah, he's been horribly inactive.
and he's on the wrong side of 40 now, which, yeah, I'm a man who's approaching the wrong side of 40. I know what it does to a body, and I'm not
still look good, Martin. Don't you worry about it.
Yeah, I don't look like him though, do I?
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah. So no, I think it's all stacked against him. I can see it being a fairly reasonably clear Canelo victory over 12 rounds, and maybe that'll be the end of the Triple G career. Which, if it is, what do you make of it? Like, how would you mark his career out of 10?
I think sort of he was just in a little bit of the wrong period. He just about missed out on Andre Ward before Andre Ward properly settled into 168, 175. You know, he didn't get the Billy Joe Saunders fight or the Miguel Cotto fights. I think he was a very dominant champion, one of the most, dominant champions we've seen over the last 10 years. But I think when you look at the CV, when you look at the resume, it's like his best is a draw with Canelo, which fair enough, only Bivol, a light heavyweight, and Floyd Mayweather Jr. have beaten Canelo. And everyone will know that draw should be a W, but it is what it is. I think he has a very good career. I think, in terms of a name, he's a big name with casuals. I know a lot of people over here that might not watch his actual fights, but they know Golovkin, his highlight reel knockouts get millions of views. And I think that he will be very fondly remembered as almost a no-nonsense, just, quiet, indestructible killer sort of thing. But I feel like like I said, there are a few questions around the resume and CV. But at the end of the day, when you face off someone, when you have someone like Canelo sort of in that same atmosphere as you, while you're sort of just coming out of your prime. I think the first fight he had with Canelo, he was 35, maybe 34. But yeah, no, a very good career, and I think he'll be remembered quite fondly.
Yeah, I think it's through no fault of his own, but I would struggle to list his best 5 wins.
Yeah,
so best 10 would be almost impossible.
Yeah,
no fault of his own. It's just there haven't been the fighters there around that weight that he's been able to get in the ring with him. So yeah, as a career, being harsh, it's probably about a 6.5 out of 10. As a reputation for how he's done it, it's probably a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Those two things exist separately almost. You kind of wish he had more opportunities to build that career up, but
yeah.
Right, Brill. So catch all that action this weekend. BT Friday night, Channel 5 Saturday night, DAZN DAZN pay-per-view Saturday night into Sunday morning. Lewis, thank you ever so much for joining us, mate.
No worries. Thank you very much, Martin. It's been a pleasure.
That's all right. You take care.